Hey everyone, Anthony here from MTG Alpha with another deck tech. Doing a paper deck tech on Rakdos, Lord of Riots. Rakdos, a 4-mana 6/6 demon with flying and trample, or as I like to call it, flample. You can't cast a spell unless an opponent lost life this turn. But creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. If you're casting something that costs 9 colorless and your opponents have lost 9 life or more, then you are casting it for free. That's kind of the idea in this deck. People like to do Eldrazi themed, or demon, just big creatures. I did a little bit of all of those things. So I tried to stick more towards like a demon tribal. I made it flavorful for Rakdos. And I definitely included some of the Eldrazi, and I definitely got some other beefy creatures in here that I just couldn't resist adding. So yeah, this deck started off as the Rakdos Guild Kit deck. That was kind of the basis of it. And I knew I wanted a Rakdos deck because those are my 2 favorite colors. And it sort of evolved into what it is today. So after a few years of tweaking it, this deck has gotten to be pretty insane. So I'd love to hear what you guys think. We're going to go over that right now. So to start, of course, we have our sort of rampy spells. Soul Ring, Jet Medallion. They got to reprint these. What do you guys think? Should they reprint these medallions soon? Like ASAP? Maybe Commander Legends 2? That'd be cool. Rakdos Signet, Rakdos Key Rune. Again, this could be an Arcane Signet instead, but kind of sticking with the Rakdos theme. That's why this Rakdos Signet is in there as well. Having fun with it, right? Crypt Gas, 4-mana 2/2. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add black to your mana pool. This is essentially a mono black deck. Essentially, okay? There are some stuff in there that do contain some red pips, but I really leaned towards just mono black, especially when you have things that have 3 black pips, multiple black pips. You kind of don't want to go too far away from that. So Cryptogas, we have the lands, Cabal Coffers, and Urborg and stuff like that to benefit from this even more, making all of our lands swamps. Solemn Simulacrum, enters the battlefield, search for a basic, put it in the battlefield tapped. I mean, does anyone not know what this card does? When it dies, draw a card. So it's also colorless, so could cast it for free. If it's later in the game, then 0 mana to get those effects out of it. Why not? Even if it's late in the game. Bantu's Monument, black creature spells you cast cost 1 less, and whenever you cast a creature spell, each opponent loses 1 and gains 1 life. So we can reduce the cost of our creatures even more the more we cast them. Cryptolith Fragment. Alright, 3 mana artifact, and it enters tapped. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, that's good. And each player loses 1 life. So it's a good way. We really have to force our opponents to lose 1 real quick just so we can get out Rakdos, then everything becomes reduced. But we need our commander out in order to make that happen. At the beginning of your upkeep, if each player has 10 or less life, you can transform it. And then this turns into a 1/4 flying Death Touch Eldrazi, and whenever it attacks, each opponent loses 3 life. I've never really transformed it, but tap it, each opponent loses life. So we have cards here that are going to just quick deal damage to our opponents, even if it's a little bit of damage, just so we can cast our commander and stay on the right track here. Spikefield Hazard, 1 mana instant, deal 1 to any target, but it also can enter as a land if you don't need it. Lightning Bolt, of course. Just quick little cheap spells. We got to get them out there, and we got to get our commander out there. Then we can cast all the big boys. Spear tap, deal 1 to each player. I did have Shepherd of Rot in here for a little bit, but I decided to swap it out for Sanctum of Stone Fangs. Throw Shepherd of Rot and Will Helt. Sanctum of Stone Fangs, 2 mana. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, each opponent loses X and you gain X, where X is the number of shrines you control. So there's only 1 shrine in here. 2 mana, pre-combat main phase. Each opponent loses 1. You gain 1. That's 3 damage dealt to your opponents. That's enough to cast Rakdos. Total life lost by your opponents, 3. Everything costs 3 less. Creatures, at least. Stormfist Crusader. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card and loses a life. So these are just ways to deal a little bit of damage so we can get out our commander and or reduce the cost of our creature spells. Keen Duelist is a good card. And if you don't already know, check it out, because it's very similar to another card that happens to be pricier. 2 mana, 2/2. At the beginning of your upkeep, you and target opponent each reveal the top card of your library. You each lose life equal to the mana value of the card revealed by the other player. Oh, I never caught that. That's interesting. So we got a lot of big boys in here, so they're going to be losing more life than we are, most likely. You each put that card you reveal into your hand. So we're forcing them to lose a lot of life. We can get out Rakdos real quick and then just start casting spells for free. Vial Smasher, whenever you cast your first spell each turn, choose an opponent at random, and then Vial Smasher deals damage equal to that spell's CMC to the player or planeswalker that they control. We're just dealing damage to our opponents in sly and clever ways. 3 mana, 3/3 first strike creature here. We got a Vampire Noble that just came out. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the total amount of life your opponent's lost this turn, which can be a lot if we're swinging in with our commander or this 8/8 demon over here. Say we're looking at the top X and we get to exile one of those cards, put it into our hand. The rest go in the bottom of our library in a random order, and we can cast that exiled card this turn. It's a good way to get a little card advantage. Tree of Perdition, crazy card, 4 mana, defender, 0/13 tap to exchange target opponent's life total with Tree of Perdition toughness. Exchanging life results in life gained or life lost. So if they're at 40 and their life total becomes 13, we're now getting 27 damage total life lost, which is 27 colorless less for our spells. And then if we're going to swing in with something like that's got haste, an 8/8 and a 6/6, then it's game over for them. Sarkhan's Unsealing. Whenever you cast a creature with 4, 5, or 6, deal 4 to any target. Whenever you cast a creature with 7 or greater power, deal 4 to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. This card's necessary in Rakdos. Court of Ambition enters the battlefield. You become the Monarch. When you're the Monarch, at the end step, you get to draw a card. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card. And if you're the Monarch, they lose 6 life unless they discard 2 cards. They're probably going to want to discard some cards because, again, we're going to get out some big boys. We're going to get out our commander, and we're going to cast things for free and win the game very, very quickly. The whole deck relies on that. If you can't get out your commander, you're probably not going to win the game. Probably. The chances are more unlikely because these are some big creatures in here. There are ways, like the mana curve is still decent enough. So if you can ramp like perfectly and you can just kind of like not be a target, like keep yourself out of the spotlight for a little bit, do what you got to do, you can win without your commander. But if you can ramp, deal some damage, get out Rakdos, and then you're pretty much just going to win at that point. Even if Rakdos stays out just long enough for you to get out a couple creatures, because these big boys do some big things when they enter the battlefield too. They're not just big flying demons and stuff. They are definitely intimidating. We have some card advantage, some card draw. Sign in Blood, Read the Bones, Wheel of Misfortune. Don't ask me. Theater of Horrors. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You can, during your turn, if an opponent lost life this turn, synergy check, you may play cards exiled with Theater of Horrors. So we get a second hand to draw, cast spells from. 4 mana any number of times and deal 1 damage to target opponent. 4 for 1 damage, it's kind of a lot, but if you have enough and it seems like the right line of play, it's not bad just to get out your commander. Phyrexian Arena, Demonic Tutor. Yeah, you If you didn't, there's no way in hell I paid for this card. So if that's what you're thinking, you're wrong. But I did pull this, so you can check that video out. Maybe I'll link it in the description. Who knows? Or maybe I'll put it in the top right now. Right now. Yeah, I pulled this card, so that was pretty nuts. Pretty cool. It's one of the my most memorable experiences opening up a pack. Slaughter Pact. Speaking of packs, Deadly Rollick. If you control your commander, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Exile target creature. Instant speed. Chaos Warp. You already know. Lightning Greaves. We gotta protect our commander. It's very, very important. So we got Swift Boots in there as well. Toxic Deluge. Pay life. All creatures get -X until end of turn. We can, instead of just destroying all the creatures, we got some big boys. 8, 6, 9, 10, 11s. We got some big boys. So if 6 life seems like the perfect amount of life to pay to get -6/-6 to everything, then that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to do. So also for board wipes, we have Mutilate. -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. 4 mana. That can be a lot, you know? Like all of our lands can be swamps. So that can be a lot. And then Damnation, just straight up 4 sorcery, destroy all creatures. Here are some of our game-winning cards. These are the cards that are highly likely going to win us the game, if we can pull it off. 5 mana, 1/4, First Strike, Death Touch, Demon. Can only attack alone. There are ways to cheat that effect, but or ability. Whenever Master of Cruelties attacks a player and isn't blocked, so you go to attack, they can't block or choose not to, their life total becomes 1. It deals no damage. Their life total just becomes 1. Then you just ping them and they're dead. So they have to block, and whatever they block with, even though it's a 1/4, it's got First Strike and Death Touch. So it's going to destroy whatever it touches. Unless they have something with First Strike or Double Strike, then Master Cruelties did. Seize the Day. Untap target creature. After this main phase, there's an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase for 4, and you have 3 for flashback. So you might be able to win the game. Temporal Extortion, 4 mana, sorcery. When you play this card, any player may pay half of their life total rounded up. If they do, it's countered. If not, you get to take an extra turn after this. So it doesn't matter what they do. If they want to pay half their life, then we're definitely getting out our commander. We're definitely dumping our hand with all the creatures that we can get out there, and we'll win next turn. Or that's if they counter it. If they don't counter it, then we're gonna take an extra turn and we're gonna win anyways, because we're gonna make that happen. So Temporal Extortion's such an awesome card. I like the artwork. I like everything about it, actually. Planar Chaos had some pretty good cards, didn't it? Liliana's Contract, 5 mana. When it enters the battlefield, you draw 4 and lose 4. That's not bad for 5. Draw 4, lose 4. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 4 or more demons with different names, you win the game. There are tons of demons in this deck, and we'll go over that in a second. Havoc Festival, combos with Wound Reflection. Players can't gain life. Great. I mean, you know. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses half their life rounded up. And then with Wound Reflection, at the beginning of each end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life they lost this turn. So upkeep, you lose half your life, try to win the game this turn, and then you lose on your end step. And Fervor, 3 mana, creatures you control have haste. Haste is pretty important, especially with Rakdos. Flying, trample, haste, 6 in the air, swing. It feels good. Feels good. Okay, so here are our demons. These all do really interesting things. 8 mana, 8/8, or 3 mana, 8/8, because we can reduce that cost down to 0 and pay 3 black. A flyer, whenever you lose life, draw that many cards, and we can pay a black and 2 life to give target creature -1/-1 until end of turn. So we have some targeted removal with card draw associated with it, and we have a 8/8 with flying for 3, possibly. That's kind of how I look at it. So here, a 10 mana 8/8 or a 3 mana 8/8, and when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, destroy all creatures your opponents control, and then tap all other creatures you control. 3 mana, 8/8, destroy all creatures your opponents control. It's nuts. Burning Rune Demon, 6 mana, 6/6. Flying, when it enters the battlefield, search your library for exactly, you may. Search your library for exactly 2 cards not named Burning Rune Demon, not a problem in Commander. They have to have different names, again. If you do, reveal them, an opponent chooses one of them, you put the card into your hand and the other into the graveyard and shuffle your library. So they get to choose the card that goes in your hand. So 2 mana, 6/6 flyer, tutor a card, goes into your hand. Reaper of the Abyss, 6 mana, 6/6 flyer, or 3. At the beginning of each end step, if a creature died this turn, destroy target non-demon creature. So you have to choose if there's something out there. If there are no other creatures on the battlefield, no other non-demon creatures except for, say, a human on your side, it's gotta die, but 3 mana, 6/6 with that ability. Pretty cool. Spawn of Mayhem also allows us to cheat out our commander by dealing 1 damage on our upkeep to each player. If you have 10 or less life, then you start to get counters on it, on your upkeep. 4 mana, 4/4 with Flample. It has Spectacle. Spectacle's great. This came in the guild kit. You can pay 3 if an opponent lost life this turn. 3 mana, 4/4, or again, 2 mana, 4/4. But not a crazy amount of reduction for Spawn of Mayhem, but it's a good card that works really well. Indulgent Tormentor, 5/3 flyer. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card unless target opponent sacrifices a creature or pays 3 life. We definitely want them to pay life. Sacrificing creatures just gives us an advantage on the board. 7 mana, 6/6, or 2 mana, 6/6 flyer that when it enters the battlefield, search your library for a card, put it in your hand, shuffle the library. So a 2 mana tutor, that's Demonic Tutor right there. But to get a 6/6 flyer out of it as well, that's good. One of the most synergistic cards. One of the better cards in here. We have another card that tutors. It's 2/3 Death Touch with Boast. Pay 2 when it attacks, and target player searches their library for a card, shuffles, and puts that card on top of it. So again, it could only be if it attacked this turn, and it could only be once a turn. So you can't pay the 2 any number of times, but lots of tutors in here. So I only had Demonic Tutor in here, but we have Demonic Tutors. Bloodgift Demon, 5 mana, 5/4, or a 2. At the beginning of your upkeep, target player draws a card and loses a life. So we can draw a card and lose a life, or we can deal 1 damage to an opponent, let them draw the card, and then start cheating out some demons. Of course, we got Rakdos the Showstopper. Flying, trample. When it enters the battlefield, flip a coin for each creature that isn't demon, devil, or imp, and then destroy each creature whose coin comes up tails. We have a decent amount of demons. It's possible some of our creatures might die, but that's okay, as long as we get to take out our opponent's creatures for only 2 mana, and then get a 6/6 Flample out there. Here are the few Eldrazi's we got. We got Conduit of Ruin. When you cast Conduit of Ruin, you may search your library for a colorless creature card with CMC 7 or greater. Reveal it, shuffle your library, put that card on top. The first creature spell you cast each turn costs 2 less to cast. So that's given us more of an advantage for casting cards. And then for colorless cards with 7 or greater, we have Void Winnower, an 11/9, and we can just straight up cast these for free. If we can deal 6 damage or 9 damage or whatever, for free. And then it still costs 2 less. Your opponents can't cast spells with even CMC. Your opponents can't block with creatures with even CMC. So Void Winnower, your opponents just cannot. An 11/9. So we could search for that with Conduit of Ruin, which we can cast for free. Search for this, get this up there, cast that for free. We could also get out Ulamog. Yeah, Ulamog, 10 mana, 10/10. When you cast it, exile 2 target permanents. It has Indestructible, and whenever it attacks, defending player exiles the top 20 cards of their library. For the longest time, I chose not to put Ulamog in the deck, and I had some store credit and had no idea what to get. They had an Ulamog. I decided to pull the trigger on it, and it's just, why not make this deck a little bit more salty? I know I cannot stand being on the receiving end of Ulamog's abilities, but sometimes it do be like that. Wandering Archaic should be an Eldrazi, but it's not. That's fine. 5 mana, 4/4. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, they may pay 2. If they don't, you may copy that spell and choose new targets for the copy. That's great. That's great. And that effect is on a creature that we could essentially get out for free. They have to pay 2 for each instant or sorcery they cast. So tutors, board wipes, it's kind of irrelevant. I mean, I'm not going to double board wipe, but if it's like a Cyclonic Rift, but yeah, tutors, draw spells, targeted removal. Steel Hellkite, 6 mana, flyer, pay 2 any number of times. It gets +1/+0 until end of turn. It's a 5/5. You can pay X and destroy each non-land permanent with CMC X whose controller was dealt damage by Steel Hellkite. Activate this ability only once each turn. So haste is relevant. Cast this for free potentially. It has haste. Deal 5 damage to them at least. Pay whatever we want. 4. Let's say we pay 4, and that takes out a decent amount of permanents they control. So pretty good. Sign of Draco. These are all colorless spells that we could potentially cast for free. 12 mana, 4/4. It costs 2 less for each basic land type among lands you control. So it can cost 4 less. So it can be 8, and we could reduce the 8 down to 0. Then you have a 4/4 flyer. Each creature you control has vigilance if it's white, doesn't matter. Hexproof, doesn't matter. But lifelink if it's black. First strike if it's red. So we can give most of the creatures are black, so they're going to have lifelink, which is great. And because there's not a whole lot of that in the deck. And then first strike if it's red. If it's black and red, they get lifelink, first strike. And most of the creatures here have flying and trample. So flying, trample, first strike, and lifelink. Stonecoil Serpent. Cost X to cast. It has reach, trample, protection for multicolored, enters with X. So whatever the total is. If we dealt 18 damage to our opponents, we're casting this for free as 18, and it is a 0/0 with 18 1/1 counters, reach, trample. We got Platinum Empyrean here for shits and giggles, basically. 8 mana, 8/8, your life total can't change. That is relevant sometimes, but it's just, I don't know, man. This card is freaking cool. Same with Platinum Angel. Flying, you can't lose the game and your opponents can't win the game. It's not as like busted as it seems at first, if you're not very familiar. I mean, 4/4. I mean, if you start going Voltron with it, yeah, that can be annoying. But in this deck, it's really not that big of a deal. I'm not really throwing boots on it. Maybe, but you just deal with the boots, or you just, give all creatures -X, like Toxic Deluge it, or Lava Coil, or like something. You can deal with it pretty easily. So it's just fun to just throw out there. Worm Coil Engine, 6 mana, 6/6, Death Touch, lifelink. When it dies, you get a 3/3 worm with Death Touch and 3/3 worm with lifelink. Essentially, you can cast that for free. I don't know how many times I have to keep saying that, but that's the whole point of the deck. It's so much fun. Triplicate Titan is very similar to Worm Coil Engine, except we added another 3/3 on there. So instead of a 6 mana 6/6 with Death Touch and lifelink, we get a 9 mana 9/9 with flying, vigilance, and trample. And when it dies, you get a 3/3 artifact creature token with flying, a 3/3 with vigilance, and a 3/3 with trample. Still need to find those tokens, but as good as Worm Coil Engine is, this is really good too. It costs a little bit more, but in this deck it's perfect. If you have one, why not have both? Whatever this is called, Urabrask is it? Creatures you control have haste, and creatures your opponents control lose haste. Giving our creatures haste is very powerful. Alright, Arcane of Cruelty is one of my favorite cards that came out in Modern Horizons 2. The mana cost is pretty up there, so it's not really relevant to cast all the time. But an 8 mana 6/6 with flying, if you have a way to cheat it out, absolutely run this card. If you have Graveyard Incursion decks, throw this in there, tutor it, throw it in the graveyard, bring it back from the graveyard. It's so freaking powerful. If you have ways to cheat it out for 2 mana, like in Rakdos, 2 mana 6/6 with flying. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, discards a card, and loses 3 life. You get to draw a card and gain 3 life. This is the black version of Elder Gargaroth, essentially. Arguably better. For me, I like to play mostly black. I don't play green as much. To me, this is more fun. But the mana cost is high, especially in black. But if you're running, Urborg and stuff like that. Massacre Worm, 6 mana, 6/5, enters the battlefield. Creatures your opponents control get -2/-2, and whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. That can reduce the cost of our creatures and get out our commander. A lot of synergy, lots and lots of synergy. Karvek the Merciless. This card was up there in price until it was reprinted, and now the reprint's not worth anything. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, Karvek deals damage equal to that spell's CMC to any target. So kind of slows down your opponents. Like, they have to consider if it's worth it or not. It is a 5/4 as well, and you could essentially get that out for 2. So that's it for those cards. Then we got the lands here. We got X amount of swamps here, X amount of mountains fit in that Rakdos theme. Command Tower, of course, Blightstep Pathway. And then we got some, like little booty, cheap tap lands. Like we got a bounce land here, Bloodfell Caves to gain a life. We got Sulphurous Mire, which is fetchable, enters tapped. Hunted Ridge, tapped unless you control 2 or more lands, which is great. Graven Carns, we could filter our mana any sort of way we need to. Sulphurous Springs, which never, I shouldn't say never, but hasn't received a reprint recently. Can tap for a colorless or black or red, but deals 1 damage to you if you choose. Vesuva comes into play. Choose a land and play. It becomes a copy of that chosen land. Comes into play tapped as well. Cavern of Souls, we're gonna choose demons. If it's relevant at the time, we can choose Eldrazi, but it's a majority demon spells. I had an extra copy, so I decided to throw it in here because I don't really have that many tribal decks, or I didn't at least. So Cavern of Souls is great. You choose a creature type. You can tap for a colorless or tap to add 1 mana of any color. You can only spend that mana on a creature of the chosen type, and that can't be countered. Sunscorched Desert enters the battlefield, deals 1 damage to target player. So good way to cheat out our commander with just a land. Cathedral of War enters tapped. It has Exalted, so whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets +1 until end of turn, which could reduce the cost of creatures by that extra 1. That's for colorless. We got a castle. We got both castles here. This gives creatures you control +1/+0. Talking about, we got each land as a swamp in addition to its other types. We got Cryptghast in here, which whenever you tap a swamp, you add an extra black. You can pay 3 and tap this to add 1 for each, 1 black for each basic swamp you control. So it's basic swamps, which we did have a few of those. Still semi-relevant. Cabal Coffers though, pay 2 and add black for each swamp you control. And all lands are swamps with Urborg. So, and then we got some little fetch type abilities, Terramorphic Expanse, just to make sure we get the right colors out there, because say we don't have any red producing mana and we need it, vice versa. So Bloodstained Mire, Rocky Tar Pits, the slow fetch, and then we have a Prismatic Visa to search for a basic land that we might need. So yeah, that is my Rakdos Lord of Riots deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. If there's any cards that you think would be good in the deck, definitely let me know in the comments below. I love to just hear about that. And if you have a Rakdos deck, maybe link it in the description. I'd like to check that out. If you have a deck list, I'll have a link for this in the description so you can see exactly what cards I have in here. And yeah, if you like the video, please like, share, subscribe. Almost at 500 subscribers. I'm going to be doing giveaways every milestone I hit. And, I really do appreciate all the support. We got some links in the description if you want to check those out and possibly support the channel. So thank you all so much for watching. And until then, see you next time. Peace.